A man boards the wrong spaceship and meets a dragon captain. What happens next changes everything. This is his story. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're telling you the story of William, a desperate man running from a failed life who accidentally boards a diplomatic dragon vessel instead of a cargo hauler. With only 3 weeks to spare before the next station, he'll have to prove his worth to a crew of 7 dragons who've never encountered a human before. But what starts as a simple misunderstanding transforms into something far more profound, a tale about finding home in most unexpected places and discovering that sometimes the best destinations are the ones you never planned to reach. Stick around as we explore themes of belonging, competence, and second chances. William checked his boarding pass for the 3rd time, the creased paper crackling in his trembling fingers. Gate 47B. The faded digits were barely legible, but the massive airlock before him confirmed it in glowing blue lettering. He'd spent his entire savings on this ticket, a one-way passage to anonymity aboard the Redemption's Call, a cargo hauler bound for the Outer Rim stations. It was supposed to be his escape route, his chance to disappear into the vastness of space and leave behind the wreckage of his life on Arcturus Station. His worn duffel bags containing everything he owned hung heavy against his shoulder as he stepped through the threshold. The moment the inner airlock sealed behind him with a pneumatic hiss, William's instinct screamed that something was catastrophically wrong. The ship's interior should have been cramped and industrial. Instead, the cargo hauler he'd signed on turned out to be anything but. Polished obsidian walls gleamed beneath his feet, seeming to pulse with some inner, almost organic heat. Crystalline panels lined the corridors in intricate geometric patterns, refracting the ambient light into impossible spectrums, colors he didn't even have names for. The air itself felt different, charged with electricity and something ancient, something that made the hair on his arms stand on end. Hello. William called out, his voice small and uncertain in the cavernous entrance bay, swallowed by the sheer scale of the space. The only answer was a low rumble that started in the floor beneath him. It vibrated through the deck plates and traveled up through his bones, a frequency so deep he felt it in his chest cavity. It was a sound of movement. Something massive was moving. Then she appeared. William's breath caught in his throat. The dragon that emerged from the shadows of the hangar bay was magnificent and absolutely terrifying in equal measure. Her scales shimmered between deep crimson and molten gold, each one the size of his hand, and catching the light like polished gemstones. She moved with fluid, hypnotic grace despite her colossal form, her serpentine neck curving gracefully as she lowered her head to examine the unexpected passenger. Her eyes, vast, amber, slitted like a predator's, fixed upon him with startling intelligence and something that might have been curiosity. A human male. Her voice rolled across the hangar like distant thunder wrapped in silk. How? This is unexpected. William's survival instincts screamed at him to run. His legs tensed, muscles bunching with adrenaline. But the airlock had already cycled shut, the doors sliding together with finality. There was nowhere to go. I think there's been a mistake, William said, his voice steadier than he felt. I'm supposed to be on the freight hauler. The Redemption's Call. This is Gate 47B, right? The dragon tilted her massive head, studying him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Yes, this is 47B. But this is the Emberborn, a diplomatic vessel of the Draantine matriarchy, she said. The dragon took a step closer, each movement deliberate and controlled. I am Captain Daisy Ashenwing, and you, little human, are trespassing on sovereign territory. Daisy. William couldn't help it. The name escaped before he could stop himself. He immediately regretted it as the captain's eyes narrowed and smoke began curling from her nostrils. My mother had a fondness for human literature, the dragon said, each word carefully articulated. Do you mock me, little human? No, sorry. It's actually a lovely name. A beautiful name, William said quickly, holding up his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Look, this is clearly a mix-up. Just a computer error, right? If you could just let me off at the next station. We are already underway, Captain Daisy interrupted, her tail lashing in what instinctively recognized as agitation. The next station, Covenant Nexus, is 3 weeks away. You will remain aboard until then. William's shoulders slumped. 3 weeks. 3 weeks trapped on a dragon ship, in the presence of an apex predator who could incinerate him with a thought. This was not how his fresh start was supposed to begin. The first week aboard the Emberborn was surreal in ways William's mind struggled to process. The ship's crew consisted of 7 female dragons, each one more formidable and intimidating than the last. They ranged from the massive Captain Daisy, whose head brushed the corridor ceilings, to Slick, the communications officer whose scales shifted like oil slicks across water, producing colors that seemed to exist outside the normal spectrum. William was assigned small quarters near the engine room, the only space aboard the vessel designed for humanoid proportions. He'd spent his first few nights listening to the rhythmic hum of the ship's systems, wondering if this was all some elaborate dream. What surprised him most, however, was the dragon's fascination with him. He'd catch them watching as he performed mundane tasks. When he helped recalibrate a sensor array in the primary navigation hub, using his smaller hands to reach into spaces too cramped for their massive claws, they gathered at the entrance to observe. They watched intently as he manipulated the delicate circuitry, their amber eyes never straying from his work. It was unsettling at first, then he realized they weren't assessing him as a threat or potential meal. They were studying him with genuine curiosity. His ability to work in confined spaces, to manipulate delicate electronics with precision, to solve problems that required a different kind of ingenuity than brute strength, it captivated them. "Your species is remarkably adaptable," observed Silix, the ship's engineer, a dragon whose scales shimmered a deep emerald green. She'd taken to following him around the lower decks like an apprentice with an elder master. "The way you use tools as extensions of your body, it's remarkable." William was half submerged in an access tunnel, squeezing into a space barely wide enough for his shoulders, his hands working on a corroded junction box that controlled the starboard coolant system. His voice echoed off the metal walls. "You guys must have maintenance drones for this kind of work, right?" "They malfunction regularly in deep space," Captain Daisy's voice echoed from the tunnel entrance, making William's heart skip. "The radiation interferes with their processors. We have learned to manage around the damage." William emerged from the tunnel, wiping grease from his hands with a rag he'd salvaged from the engine room. The captain's massive head nearly filled the corridor. "It's really not that impressive," he said honestly. "Just basic electrical work. Nothing fancy. Basic for you, perhaps." Daisy's posture had shifted subtly from the hostile dominance of their first encounter into something altogether different, curiosity, maybe even a hint of something protective. "You have repaired 17 critical systems in 4 days, William. Systems we have been working around for months. You've been just living with broken equipment." William was genuinely surprised. A lot of it wasn't even that complicated. "We have the strength to compensate for most deficiencies," Daisy said carefully, and there was something almost self-conscious in her tone. "But certain work requires hands designed for precision rather than power." She paused, studying him with those ancient eyes. "Tell me, what were you running from? The freight hauler you intended to board, what were you escaping?" William's jaw tightened. He'd come to space to escape questions like that. But something about the captain's directness, the absence of judgment in her voice, made him decide to be honest. "I wasn't running from something," he said quietly. "I was running toward something. A fresh start. I was a maintenance technician on Arcturus Station until they decommissioned the whole facility. The sector's economy collapsed after that. Jobs for humans are, well, they're non-existent. So I liquidated everything and bought passage on the first ship headed anywhere." Daisy was silent for a long moment, the only sound the faint hum of the ship around them. "You have skills we desperately need," she finally said. "In the Draantine matriarchy, competence is valued above all else. More than species. More than origin." William looked at her scarred face, the carefully controlled power in her massive frame, and realized that Captain Daisy Ashenwing, despite being an apex predator who could snap him like a twig, was genuinely offering him a place. Not out of charity, out of respect for what he could contribute. It was a novel feeling. By the second week, William had become something more than just an unexpected passenger. He'd become integral to the Emberborn's operations. He reorganized the cargo storage facility using space-efficient principles that increased their practical capacity by 30%. He modified the waste recycling system with a series of clever redirects and automated sorting mechanisms, boosting efficiency by over 40%. He even jury-rigged an elegant solution to the persistent coolant leak that had plagued the starboard engine, involving a series of controlled bypasses and redundant pressure regulation that the Dragons found ingenious. The change in how the crew treated him was as dramatic as the operational improvements. The initial wariness had evaporated entirely, replaced by something warmer and more complex. They brought him elaborate meals from their commissary, insisting he sample their food despite the acrid, slightly metallic taste that took some getting used to. They adjusted the ship's temperature controls to better match human comfort zones. Slick, the communications officer with her shifting scales, had even fabricated a custom workstation from salvage materials, creating a desk and chair that fit his proportions perfectly and included refinements, arm rests, a footrest, even a small reading lamp that suggested genuine care. One evening, William found himself in the navigation bay, reviewing star charts and calculating optimal routes for the next leg of their journey. He'd begun to understand the subtle mathematical principles that governed the Draantine's navigation protocols. It was satisfying work, the kind that made his brain light up with engagement. "You have made yourself quite at home," Captain Daisy observed, entering the bay with her usual silent grace. In 2 weeks, he'd learned that dragons were far more silent-footed than their massive size suggested. "Just trying to earn my passage," William replied, glancing up from the holographic displays. The charts painted the void in luminous strokes of color and mathematics. "We should be approaching Covenant Nexus soon, right? 3 weeks is almost up." Captain Daisy's tail coiled around her body in what William had learned was a sign of deep agitation. The scales along her spine bristled slightly. "Yes, about that," she began carefully. A younger dragon poked her head into the navigation bay, her scales still bearing the slight iridescence of a relatively young individual. "Captain Daisy, the diplomatic committee, is requesting a priority channel. They say it's urgent. It's about the human." William's stomach performed an elaborate drop that had nothing to do with the ship's inertial dampeners. "What about me?" he asked carefully. Daisy sighed, a plume of smoke curling from her nostrils. When she turned those ancient amber eyes on him, there was something apologetic in them. "I need to be completely honest with you, William. When I reported your presence to the Matriarchy Council, they became intrigued. Fascinated, actually," she said. She paused, clearly choosing her words with care. "The Draantine have been searching for solutions to maintain our older vessels and space stations for generations. Our claws are magnificent instruments, perfect for combat, perfect for ceremonial work. But they are terrible for the delicate manipulation required in modern systems maintenance." William waited, sensing there was more. "They want to offer you a contract," Daisy continued. "Formal employment with the Draantine matriarchy. Training other humans to work as maintenance specialists. Establishing protocols. Building an entire maintenance corps." She moved closer, her enormous head lowering until they were nearly at eye level. "If you refuse, you are free to disembark at Covenant Nexus, as we promised." "But William," her voice softened, became almost vulnerable. "In past 2 weeks, you have become part of this crew. Part of my crew. We do not want you to leave." The navigation bay seemed suddenly very small. William looked around at the systems he'd repaired, the modifications he'd implemented, the networks he'd helped optimize. He thought about the Redemption's call, about the anonymous cargo hauler life he'd planned, about disappearing into the vastness of space with no one caring who he was or what he contributed. He thought about Daisy watching him work, about Silix following him through the corridors with genuine interest, about Slick crafting a workstation just for him. He thought about being valued. "The contract," he said slowly. "Does it come with reasonable accommodations? Fair pay?" "The Draantine matriarchy is many things, William, but we are not unfair employers," Captain Daisy replied. Her expression, as much as a dragon's features could convey such things, seemed to glow with cautious hope. "You would be among the first of your species to hold official rank in our fleet. Engineer William. A title that means something." William smiled. "Then I think I boarded the right spaceship after all." Captain Daisy's rumbling purr shook the deck plates beneath his feet, a sound of pure satisfaction, of relief, of something that might have been joy. "Welcome to the Draantine matriarchy, Engineer William. Welcome to the Emberborn. We have so much work ahead of us." As the Emberborn sailed through the stars toward Covenant Nexus, William found himself standing on the observation deck he'd helped repair just 2 days earlier. The view was magnificent, vast and beautiful and endless. Stars wheeled across the transparent aluminum, each one a potential future. He realized, with a clarity that surprised him, that sometimes the best destinations are the ones you never plan to reach. Sometimes wrong turns, mysterious computer errors, and one ridiculous boarding pass mix-up lead you exactly where you belong. Sometimes home isn't a place you choose. It's a crew you build with, a ship you help sustain, a captain whose respect you've earned through dedication and competence. He thought about Daisy, about Silix and Slick and all the others. Dragons. Once that word would have conjured images from ancient stories, predators, hoarders, creatures fundamentally alien and incomprehensible. Now it meant something else. It meant home. Enjoying the view. William turned to find Captain Daisy entering the observation deck. She moved up beside him, settling her massive frame with surprising grace. "I was just thinking about how none of this was supposed to happen," William said. "About boarding the wrong ship, taking a wrong turn that turned out to be exactly right." "Mistakes," Captain Daisy said thoughtfully, her gaze fixed on the distant stars, "are sometimes just opportunities in disguise." She glanced down at him, and in the starlight, her scales seemed to shimmer with the colors of possibility itself. "You gave us more than repairs and innovations, Engineer William. You gave us proof that cooperation between species is possible. That competence and respect matter more than biology." "So what happens now?" William asked. "Now," Daisy said, a hint of that rumbling purr returning to her voice, "we return to Covenant Nexus. You meet with the Matriarchy Council. You help establish protocols, begin recruiting and training other humans. We build something new, something better." She paused, and then the galaxy opens up. William looked back at the stars and smiled. They seemed brighter than before, more full of possibility. He wouldn't have it any other way. This is what happens when you stop running away and start running towards something. When you prove your worth not through combat or dominance, but through competence and care. William's story reminds us that humanity's greatest strength isn't physical power. It's our adaptability, our ingenuity, and our ability to find common ground with anyone willing to listen. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of second chances and interspecies cooperation, hit that like button and subscribe for more Human Finds His Place in the Galaxy content. Drop a comment below. What did you think of William's choice? Would you have taken the contract or risked the unknown? Check out our playlist of HFY stories that explore what makes humanity extraordinary across the cosmos. And if you want more tales of humans earning respect among the stars, watch the video we've pinned in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time in the stars.